Yes.
Which passage talks about them being equal heirs of grace? First Peter
First
3:7.
Peter 3 verse 7 talked about it, and
I thought that was where it was talking about them being the weaker vessel.
but it's still there, right there.
But it's still there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Now you can also find it in Galatians chapter 3. I think Galatians chapter 3, verse 28, 29. Let me read it. For as many for as many of you as have been baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female. So that idea, okay, of male dominance is not here. It's not the New Testament thinking. There's neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. And if ye be Christ, then are ye Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So it applies to the woman, it applies to the man. As a matter of fact, Romans chapter 8, I think verse 15 and 16, he said, every one of us that received the Spirit of God, it cries out, Abba, Father, in our hearts, bears witness that we are God's children and that we are heirs and joint heirs with Christ. So whether he's a woman in terms of gender or a man, it doesn't really matter. You are a heir. So in the family of God, properties are not bequeathed to men. It is bequeathed to women. It is bequeathed to men alike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to contribute something to Eve being deceived.
Yeah.
Could it be that Adam and Eve were both tending to the animals, looking after the garden together, and the serpent, in his very, smart way, probably too was around joking with them, all laughing and having fun, and subtly said to her, "You do know that this apple, if you eat it, nothing will happen." And she probably in her, should I say, motherly fashion or probably thinking that, "Oh, really? Okay, let's see." And as ate it, while Adam was still tending to others, and he not concentrating because she was also doing what he was doing, but she was more easy to appeal to, which was why Satan went to her and put that before her, and she tried it, but she gave in. I have been trying to find why her, and this is what I'm able to come up with.
Now that's
Myself and Adam were probably
yeah, that's a good thing, Sister Isi. Sorry, that's a good thought. But again, that explains the issue of the weakness. Like I said before, Adam probably would have the serpent devil would have said, if I talk to this guy is going to shut me out immediately. Will shut me up and just kick me out of this place. I guess I just have to talk to the mama. Women may have a way of listening and have been appealed to. Again, as I said, remember how he approached the whole issue. Did God say you should not eat of any? It wasn't specific at the moment. It's just like a general thing. It was Eve who now pointed a specific one. He said, not really as he said though. You see, it's like women giving an ear to listen to plenty gist and tori way there for town, those kind of stuff, and that got is trouble. But so the devil was smart to, go to the person that he could appeal, and if he had gone straight to God, to Adam rather, and said, "Do you know if you eat this?" and Adam would have said, "Will you get? You are that one God said I should protect this garden from." It probably would have been different, and maybe that time the woman would say, "Let's kill him." Are you with me? But it went the other way. It went the other way, and for whatever reason, and it got just that. The point is that we are designed to be responsible for whatever action they take with respect to that tree, and whatever that tree holds, their future in that garden or losing the garden as well. So it's a very interesting and funny thing that they had to touch it and lose the garden. Maybe they didn't even think that it would be as though, because the devil sowed that lie to them that it's not going to be really as God said it. So probably they began to think along that line. Maybe Adam, maybe it's not exactly as we think it. Or maybe God, God is so good and has been so good to us. Look at all that he made. Maybe it's not really that hard. I think we have taken him so serious when he really meant that way. And he probably began to reason in that line. Because the devil didn't say you will not die. He said you will not really die. And again, as I said yesterday, it's just to minimize the consequences and hype the supposed benefits. And that's actually, and that's exactly how people get scammed even till today. That's the way people scam people even till today. So kind of give you a picture of how much that you're going to make, and the supposedly breakthrough or kind of life and wealth and luxury and all of that, and the risk is not really much. And then before, when you put it together, it's okay. It's what a trial. Your money goes. That's usually the way it starts. It's still the same principle of the devil. All right. So there is another thing that is here. Now, where was the man? We talked about absentee fathers, which failed fathers and husbands, which is not good for the woman, not good for children, and not good for society in any case at all. The trouble is that today we have fathers who are not there, who don't want to be responsible, who don't want to be accountable, and that's why they have created baby mamas and baby fathers. I don't understand all those kind of confusion. All of these things are what just started here. You can see it playing out and kind of multiplying in different aspects of it, increasing that we see in our society today. And which is not good for us. It's not good for God. It's not good for when we say it's not good, it's good, not good for us. It has nothing to do with God. God has his own life. He's a complete and perfect and wonderful being. So is everything he had told us to do or not to do is for our good here. And we have created confusion in the society, and which is terrible. All right. Now the next thing that happened in that Genesis chapter 3, if you look at verse 7, the Bible said that Eve saw that the tree was good for food, pleasant to the eyes, and to make thee wise, or to make her wise. But think about it for a moment. One tree that is able to make you what? That is good for food, pleasant to the eyes, and then make you wise. Wow. Well, this is what I'll say. We need to realize very closely and clearly that the Bible talks about the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, and the lust of the flesh. That's actually what is here. And this will play out later, and in everything the devil tempts man, it is based on these three fundamental principles that that is in this place. Every temptation that we can talk about today, the devil tempts man, is within these three. And then when you understand it properly, you can always win any temptation of the devil. Any temptation of the devil, you can always win him. He doesn't come, he's an old devil, he's not a new devil, he's an old devil. And his tricks are still the same old tricks and old pattern. If you understand it, you always win the devil. No matter how he packages it, it is still the same. It's old devil, not new devil. It's old devil. It's old devil with the old mindset. He can only repackage it, rebrand it, but it has to do with these three basic principles. First John talk about the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Remember, as I said before, this tree was a source of information for the knowledge of good and evil. That's basically what it is. Sometimes some men are also, the reverse is the case in our world today, because everything has fallen, everything is, there's chaos. Sometimes the women are the one, running out here and there, and the men are sitting at home with the children. Of course, a lot of confusion, And sometimes the men become tigers and start eating the children. Too many things going on. But the two, you are just by yourself. You make laws the way it suits you. You define values as you deem it fit or right, and do whatever you want to do. And you can call what God called right wrong, and you can call what God called wrong right. In other words, you are like him. You are Lord unto yourself, and you don't need anybody to tell you otherwise. And you also don't, you are not answerable to any superior authority or higher authority. No one is holding you accountable. And this is what man is playing out today. In fact, it is so terrible in our world today. We see it in the Western cultures, and some, but I wouldn't want to say Western culture as if you condemn the whole Western world, but we see it in a certain cultures where God has been kicked out of the society, and all of that. And unfortunately, the God's agency on earth, and sometimes have also compromised, and that I mean the church has also compromised in not being opposing this vehemently, because most of the people that make laws, some of them also claim to be Christians, profess Christians, as they say, or we are born Christians, but they were there and voted God out, voted his things out. Unfortunately, the truth and sad reality is that you can't vote God out. For whatever we do, we are replaying the same sin of Adam and Eve, and a time shall come when God will hold all men accountable as well. All right, so we see that that was the ye shall be as gods. The funniest thing about it is that there is no neutral ground. When the devil said to them, ye shall be as gods, he kind of confused them. There's no neutral ground in the sense that you can't be it's either you are with God or you are with the devil. You can't be by yourself. That's just the funniest part of it. Remember, the devil revolted against God in heaven, tried to create his own system and his own kingdom. And what it did was to try to set up the opposite of what God has put. So where there's light, he put darkness, because he had become darkness. He was the light bearer, but now he is darkness bearer, really. And are you with me? So when people turn away from God, knowingly or unknowingly, they have submitted and turned to the devil. And the funniest thing about it is that whomever you obey is who is your Lord and who you have submitted to. You might not, some people say, no, I'm not serving the devil, but I don't also believe that there is God. I don't subscribe to religion, neither God nor devil. No, that's stupidity. In fact, that's the worst stupidity. What that really means is that devil has swallowed you completely. There's no neutral ground, because there's God and there is one rebellious PA, one rebellious creature of God who tried to set up his own kingdom. And so there is only two systems. You either have, what you say, positive or negative. There's not really a neutral in the whole thing at all. There's no neutral ground. It's either you're obeying this one or you're obeying this one. Unfortunately, Adam and Eve bought the lie and never knew what, the extent of what the devil was talking to them and what it really meant. So they subscribed to the devil unknowingly. The devil made this revelational truth to God, this important truth to the Lord Jesus in the Gospel of Luke chapter number 4. I think it's about 6 and 7. When you look at it, where the devil told Jesus and said, bow to me and worship me, and I will give you the kingdoms of this world and its glories, for it has been delivered unto me. Who did it and how did it get to you? So it points back to this issue. He said, when he said, ye shall be as gods, it actually means if you go against God, you are now what? You are mine. You belong to me. But he didn't tell them that. He didn't tell them outrightly, see, guys, if you leave God, you will be the one serving me. No, he told them and said, no, you will be like God. In other words, you'll be sovereign. You are not serving to anybody. It's not true. You are either on God's side or you're on the devil's side. And the devil will never tell you that's what it really means until you just get into that trouble. The other thing about it that he said is, when he said, ye shall be as gods, he said, knowing good and evil. Knowing good and evil. Again, I've said about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a source of information. Knowing good and evil. Well, we already know good and evil today. Experience has taught us the kind of knowledge that we have developed has brought us pain. nuclear energy can be harnessed for electricity, power, and a few other things, and drive plants that could be very powerful and last years without trouble. But the same nuclear energy, we have converted it and used it to kill. So we have now knowledge that it has become source of what? Good and as well as evil. That could advance, be positive in a sense. But you see, that evil principle, that principle that is in that thing will always produce what? Good and evil. Just as people can take drugs, some leaves, and make it, some drugs that people can take and be healthy. That is, some people will convert the same leaves and be smoking dope and smoke out their brain and their life, good and evil. So everything has been twisted and turned. But you see, they thought that, okay, there is something we don't know, that we are not going to know, okay? And we'll be in charge and be doing what we like, and we'll be fine. We can manage the evil. No, they couldn't manage the evil till today. Our knowledge has become a source of trouble, of pain, of so many things. And that is what it is. Phone technology has been done. Today, it's also used for surveillance. It's also used for so many terrible things. Even though it's a good thing that can enhance communication, enhance communication and all of that. But it's also used for surveillance. It's also used for the crime and all of that. So the knowledge of good and evil. Now, another important question that needed to be asked, remember, when we deal with salvation, we are looking at what they were before the fall. And it's important to, grasp that. And I did, go through that. And it's also important to see how things started going wrong and the lies that the devil sowed to them that got them into this mess that they brought mankind into. Okay, so where was the man is another important thing to think about. Where was the man? The man was the person that was put in the garden first, and the woman was made after, to be. And it was the man that God gave the explicit instruction clearly, even though it was given to both of them. But the man had instruction and said, God said, take this garden, care for it, work it, and do what? Protect it, keep it, guard it. In other words, as I said, that word guard and protect it is suggestive of there might be an intruder, there might be an enemy that will come in here to mess up things. The question is, where was the man when the serpent came, when the devil came? Where did he go? And usually, I always talk about absentee fathers, men who are not responsible enough to take care of their wife, their spouses, and their children, who wouldn't be there and sit down at home and look after them. Adam seemed to be, playing with the animals or whatever. Well, the Bible never said he was running around with animals, but where was he? What was he doing? Was the guy sleeping and just woke up and saw an apple that the wife was just that tree? He should have said, he should have screamed, "What are you doing?" All those kind of, we didn't see those reactions. Where did he go? Where was he when this issue happened, when this trouble came, when this tragedy, when this enemy entered? Could have said, who were you talking to? In all of these things. But that's the same thing we see today. That's the same thing we see in our world today. We are men stay in the club, in the business meetings and all kinds of things, and they forget everything about the home and leave it to the woman. The Lord suggested to them and said, your eyes shall be opened. And but they were not blind, neither were they spiritually blind either. Because they could see God, they could relate with God. And physical blindness, no, because Adam saw Eve when God was bringing her. Is that correct? And said, this is the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. If they were physical blind, they wouldn't have been seeing the apples and be eating them. Are you with me? So they were not physically blind, and they were not equally spiritually blind in the sense of being aware of God. The whole issue of eyes is that your eyes is a faculty of awareness. It's a faculty of awareness. It's just it helps you, to be aware. So it all deals with consciousness and awareness of God. What happened is that he told them, your eyes shall be opened. But they were, so to say, opened. Their eyes were open to God, and their eyes were open to their physical environment. These other eyes that they were open to was going to be something terrible. And that's actually what the devil wanted them to get into. But he packaged it in a way that it sounded as if it was something, something powerful than what they already had. And that is about consciousness. Because the Bible says when their eyes opened, there was something that happened to them. The moment their eyes opened, they saw or they knew that they were naked. Now, the only way you can appreciate what I just said now is when you go to Luke 24, I think about verse 34, or from 34, when Jesus began to talk to the disciples on the road to Emmaus, two of them. The Bible said their eyes were holding to recognize that this was the Lord. But at some point after teaching them scriptures, he went into their house with them, broke bread. When he broke that bread, something happened. The Bible says again, their eyes were opened and they saw that it was the Lord. Now, we see two opening of eyes in the Bible with two different seeing. The other one saw that they were naked. The other one saw that Jesus was with them. The Lord was with them. So the whole idea of eyes opening is about consciousness. One is God consciousness. The other is self-consciousness. And that is the trouble of man. So, like you pointed out, when we shall look at sin and all the things that sin had brought in, we will be looking at what we call sin consciousness, because which is tied part of self-consciousness issue. Because now they saw that they were naked. They saw that they were incomplete, inadequate. They saw themselves by themselves, and each different apart. Okay? And that is the real trouble of mankind. That's the real trouble of mankind. Because it leaves us in a place where they saw their inadequacy, they saw their inability, they saw their incompleteness. They were naked. The idea of nudity in the sense of they were not clothed, which means they were clothed with glory before. There was something that had left them when they took that tree, that the glory of God that covered them, the kabod of God that covered, which was their clothing. This same thought will be carried on in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. So this clothing has left them now. And in other words, God has got out, the Spirit of God has lifted, and now they saw themselves unable. They saw helplessness. That awareness, it's like someone is sick and you are aware, that you just cannot heal yourself. You cannot say, my body, repair now, and your body gets repaired. You don't have such power, such ability. There's somebody is dying or sick, and your loved one, and you realize that there's no ability in you to say, be healed, and stop that harm or whatever that was going on by the devil. And then you realize that you are just helpless. And that's what brings men and women to tears. They cry and they moan and weep and said, because they wish they would have, they had power to effect change, to stop that sickness, to say, no, don't, stop going further. Cancer, get away from this place. That's the point. Now they realize they were inadequate. That's the sense of, nakedness that, right there, even though there are still more into it, but which is not, maybe we'll talk about in the concept of sin as well. All right. Now, we are looking at the fatal lies of the devil, the things he said to them, and I'm looking at those points. The next is, ye shall be as gods. Ye shall be as gods. Now, that's interesting. Ye shall be as gods. Now, this is what the devil told them. These are the lies that he sold to them. Ye shall be as gods. And that means independence. Independence. To be gods like God, as he suggested to them. Remember, he told them, he said, God know that the day that you eat of these things, your eyes will open, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. In other words, you are going to be like God in the sense that you will no longer be dependent on God. You will no longer be submitted to God. You will be on your own. It's more or less like you'll be like me, because he had declared independence from God, So he said, you shall be as gods. It means you don't need to obey God. You don't need to serve God. You are God by yourself. That's the idea. That's the package. You guys can just live by yourself without God, really. And that's what he was saying. On the other side of it, if you look at it, ye shall be like God. But they were created like God. They were created in his image and after his likeness. So what other thing else do they want? If not to say to them, you can be independent of God and you don't need God anymore in your life. And again, that idea is a treason. And that's why the sentence is death. Because remember what when we talked about sin, if you had, when we were looking at the sin concept, if you had been in that class, you realize that sin is a rebellion, is a revolt against the government of God. And every rebellion usually is treated as a capital offense. It's usually treated with a capital punishment. So the thing that follows is death. Well, death, because not just God is the thing is that when you do such a thing, you are plugged out, you are unplugged from the source of life, who is God. So the thing left is death, simple. And that's what happened to them. Are you there? Now, another thought, to the issue of ye shall be like God. Now, that's part of what we see today as secular humanism. At secular humanism, ye shall be as God. We are seeing that same idea that the devil sold to Adam and Eve playing out in our world today. There are countries, there are cultures that have jettisoned God out of their life, in the sense of societies that have removed everything about God, remove if there are churches, some of them have been turned into museum. The crucifix in those days have been taken away. The poor man was taken to Abraham's bosom, because it's Abraham's bosom. It wasn't, to the, but it's a place, the paradise. And where the rich man was there. Remember, the rich man said to Father Abraham, so he could recognize Father Abraham. In fact, he was more intelligent, because in that dimension, he could tell who is who. So he said, Father Abraham, please, can you send Lazarus? You see, in his mind, Lazarus is still an errand boy. He's still thinking Lazarus to be, he's a poor man. He's not really. Even though Lazarus was in a better place than him, he said, can you send him to dip his finger in a water and let them have a drop of it, to satiate my thirst. And so he could recognize Lazarus, he could recognize Abraham, and he even engaged Father Abraham and said, please, send Lazarus or some other person to go talk to my brothers so that they won't come here. Are you with me? So he still has his personality. He still could remember. He still, knows things. He knows. So that's what how we are designed to be, function. And but you must know that when you pull out, when the spirit and the soul separates, the body dies. The body dies. Now that's what we call death as we know it. But remember, I said it's three. The first one is unplugging from God. The second one is our spirit and soul unplugging from our body. And the third one, which is the Bible calls the second death, in the context of the death that God will punish sinners, those who have rebelled against him at the end of the age, when Jesus returns to judge all mankind. And that time is when God will judge both the devils, Satan and his angels, and every other one that have rebelled against him, and every other person will face the judgment of God, really. At that point, there is another thing the Bible calls second death. That particular death in the book of Revelation is not death in the sense of annihilation from existence. No. That death is simply means going to prison. That's actually what it means. God is going to put man, the people that rebelled against him, the fallen angels, the rebellious angels, all of these people, he's going to gather them together and put them into the prison, the maximum kirikiri. That's where he's going to put them. He's going to put them in a maximum kirikiri, in a prison. And I understand, I should, anyone that from our country here will understand what maximum kirikiri means. But again, for people that are not part of us, subsequent or later that would, from other countries that sign up for the courses, it's a prison built where people will serve punishment. All right. Now, the punishment will not be correctional facility. They are not coming back again. It's a life imprisonment. Now, the interesting thing about it is that the devil is not going to die, and every other human being that goes into that hellfire will not die, as Jesus said. They will stay there forever and ever. So the Bible calls it death as well, because this particular death means they are now forever denied the opportunity of God's presence, and they will be in a place they are going to be in torment and suffering for the rest of eternity, that we because I believe we shall be enjoying with God on the other side. So now, that's what that when I said God is not in the nature of God to annihilate the things he created, in other words, put them out of existence, and as we think people can do now, God doesn't do that way. Okay, do I have a question there?
Thanks. Yes, Brother Innocent, good morning.
Good morning, Stacy.
You said God does not annihilate. You've explained the three kinds of death. So what would we call what happened when God asked Noah to build an ark and put all the animals in, and the rain came and washed everyone away? Or, removed that generation, so to speak.
Again, let me say this again. In fact, if you read, remember the world is going to be remade. I hope you know when the Lord comes back, he's going to remake the world. But again, more particularly, I think I'm emphasizing has to do with human beings, because that is the one that has God's image and after his likeness. But even the earth will be remade. Most of these things, will be remade. They are going to be made anew. And at that time, there will still be snake. There will still be all these kind of things, animals, lions, and all that. Because Isaiah said, a time shall come when children will put hand in the mouths of asps, vipers, and bring them out, and it will not hurt them, and animals will not kill them. So there's going to come a time. But if you read the book of 1 Peter, I think chapter 3, you find out that that even the Bible spoke about Jesus going to the prison world and proclaim message to those who rebelled, even in the days that were the days of Noah. The days of Noah. So that they died, that they were destroyed, was the flesh. It was not the spirit soul of those human beings. Even though there was a genetic mutation, those angels were not equally destroyed and annihilated from existence. They will be held accountable at the end of time, when God will judge them for all that they have done, and then he will put them in the lake of fire. All right. So again, I remember you mentioned something about the trees in the middle of the garden.
Yes.
I also want to say the tree in the middle of the garden. No, remember there were two trees. Now, Bible never told us Adam never ate that particular one, the tree of life. But there's possibility that they were eating of it, because in that they were in the pure state. They were in a very beautiful state. There was nothing of wrong in them, and God never forbade them to eat it. The only one he said he put a prohibition was the knowledge of good and evil, and that is it. All right. Do I have any more questions and we can respond to it. Otherwise, we just continue.